Hello and welcome along to the latest episode of this week's Acca, sponsored by Sky Bet Acca Freeze. I'm Tom Carnduff, sat in our studio in Leeds and joined by Gab Sutton and Joe Townsend to deliver our selections. The format of the podcast is simple. We each make a case for a number of teams that we believe should be included to make up our weekly Acca. And of course, we want to hear from you too. Let us know your bankers, your teams to avoid as well. So get in touch with us through @SportingLifeFC on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. Search Sporting Life on Facebook and you'll find us on there too. We obviously want to give you a winner. We're aiming for an Acca that sits around the 10-1 or above-ish marker with a boost available on Sky Bet afterwards too. Remember, keep it fun. Never bet more than you can afford. This podcast is 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly. Joe, Gab's exempt from this Tuesday's disaster class. Do we want to briefly have a brief debrief or... I mean, Arsenal...
Yeah, you go for it, mate. You go for the results.
Arsenal, away, struggling, French side, Arsenal flying high. Not a problem. Plymouth, unbeatable, ignore the Southampton game, unbeatable at home, not an issue there. They've fallen short. And the other one, Oxford, didn't let us down. Comfortable victory over Shrewsbury. Someone else let us down. I can't remember who it is. I'm so angry about it. PSV, yes, against... Bad one. I suppose the good thing is we've not had too many Accas like that so far this season.
Yeah, so that goes into the stinker column for us. So you can see on sportinglife.com that we have an Acca tracker. And so far, we actually haven't had something that we put in the shocker column, which is no result correct. But it was our second one of the season to go in the stinker column, which is only getting one result correct. But we go again. It's
also one less than the off-the-post category we have, which is one goal away.
Exactly.
So we've been more times one goal away than we have one result.
What I am actually going to have a look at, I probably should have done this before the podcast, but I don't need to because we've got especially League One, League Two expert.
Oh, I've done no research either. I'm just going to say teams and hope he'll fill in the gaps.
I really think that our success rate has mainly come in League One and League Two fixtures. Feel like that's where we probably can steal a bit of a march on the bookies. So looking forward to building a Premier League and Championship only coupon for Saturday today. But that's what it feels like anyway. We do have a fully viewable, transparent record in the Acca tracker on sportinglife.com, so you'll be able to work it out yourselves. But I'm just scrolling back now, and we've got a really, really strong run of favourable outcomes from League One and League Two matches. So maybe we're onto something there.
Gab Sutton joins us. He stepped in my place last week. I was drinking loads of good whiskey in various Scottish distilleries.
I tried to do my best impression of you, Tom.
Thank you. I'm glad. Yeah. That was the one thing I did tell Joe. Make sure all the guests just pretend I'm here so nobody can ever know. We are on YouTube, by the way. If you're listening to this, it's the first episode that we're put on YouTube. If you'd like to go on and see our lovely faces as I look directly into the camera.
Is that why you've worn a hoodie? Because it's a YouTube thing.
It's October, but it's a nice grey number if you're not watching. Gab, lots of people would have seen you on Twitter. They would have heard the podcast last week as well, but maybe for those who haven't come across you yet, just kind of fill us in on your expertise, your leagues that you like to focus on mainly.
Sure, yeah, I've been studying the EFL for the last 9 years or so, and writing about it, podcasting on it, and doing shows like this.
What I really like about how Gab introduces himself is he almost sounds like a scholar or someone working in academia, describing studying the EFL, but it does give you a real depth of knowledge, so I like it. Most people are like, I'm a EFL journalist, something like that, but Gab puts himself in a different stratosphere of knowledge, which is why he's great to have on this pod.
Yeah, I think if you told him do an academic paper on the EFL, I think we'd get something good back. 24.7k followers on X, formerly known as Twitter, to give it its official long name. So,
but what did he describe himself as before we started recording? James Bond,
yes, 007.
I got the number 7 on my badge for today, so I've just written a couple of zeros in front of it. Shaken, not stirred.
There we go, I like that. So we've got a nice range of kind of leagues to look at, potential as well as we look to put Tuesday behind us onto a traditional Saturday card, a lot to go at. Joe, I'll throw to you first, actually. Talk me through a potential first selection. Where could we go first off?
Well, I'm going to start where we finished for our midweek Acca, actually, and the only team that delivered for us on Tuesday was Oxford United, and they're on a fantastic run in League One. And I think it was you that was saying on Monday's pod, Tom, that you just get that feeling that is this the season that Oxford finally get back to the second tier?
Got to whisper it.
Yeah, a little bit.
They don't like if you talk it up, so just whisper it
slightly. They're playing Bristol Rovers at home. I quite like the price, 4 to 5. I thought they'd be a touch shorter, actually. I'm surprised that Bristol Rovers have started as poorly as they have done. We've talked about several times on the podcast that begrudgingly, Joey Barton is a good manager, even despite his character. But yeah, they have struggled so far this season. They played Barnsley early in the season, as I mentioned, and they played really well. They ought to have beaten Barnsley by a couple of goals, got a late equaliser, but they haven't really built on those early season performances. So I'd be quite happy for us to stick with Oxford again for a home game that they ought to win.
Just to add to what Joe said there, after the defeat last time out, Joey Barton was sort of complaining about one of the decisions Luke Thomas made on the pitch, and he went very public on it, and you do wonder whether that sort of way of managing will kind of flare up a little bit. So I can certainly get on board with Oxford. I think they look a really strong side this year. Greg Lee looks a brilliant acquisition and probably something a bit different to what they've had in previous seasons. So yeah, I'm sweet on Oxford and happy to go along with that one.
I'll do my favourite statistic of why you can't have it.
You're kidding me.
It's a 12:30 non-televised.
No way.
I love this.
What is wrong with us at the minute?
Because this has happened a few times, usually from podcast debutantes, to give them their correct term. It's a 12:30 non-televised game, but again, I wanted to talk about it because at 4 to 5 it's a lovely price on a single, so it's definitely not useless information.
Do you know what? People are going to start thinking that we're doing this on purpose. Like it's a weekly thing for us to take the mick. I cannot believe that I've dropped a ball.
I was slightly worried, though, when you said we'll pick up where we left off. I was like, the Netherlands on the PSV, but that's fine. That's okay. We can still include it. That's on the Acca, but in the podcast. So
that's a real gut punch, that. But I will be putting that up on sportinglife.com as a Saturday best bet.
It's a perfect one.
I really like it.
We'll move on to a potential first selection.
Sorry.
Do you want to go again, or do you want to pass on to
Gab? Pass to Gab.
Yeah, Gab. Talk to us a potential team that we should keep an eye on. Hopefully at 3 p.m.
Yes, it is.
Please don't say Sunderland. They're at 12:30.
3 p.m. kick-off. I think you've got to go against Cheltenham because they've still not scored a goal yet. They've appointed Darrell Clark as manager, hoping he can have a bit of an instant impact, but no immediate bounce for them on Tuesday night. They lost 2-0 to Fleetwood, 11 games into their league season, and they're still without a goal. It's going to be a pub quiz question, I think, in a few years, this. I'm more than happy to get behind Derby, not because I'm necessarily convinced of their sort of top two credentials, but I think in terms of the individual quality that Derby have got, I think they've got more than enough to see off a really sorry Cheltenham side. Darrell Clark said after the 2-0 defeat to Fleetwood that his side are a million miles off even being an average team in League One, let alone a good one. So he's certainly not mincing his words, and I think it's going to be difficult for Cheltenham.
Yeah, just looking at the price, I confidently predicted on the basis of nothing that Cheltenham would score 3 against Fleetwood because that's how the EFL works. They haven't scored forever, so eventually it's going to be floodgates when it happened. It didn't happen. They got nowhere near.
That was a very scientific approach of you.
Yeah, it's you can kind of do all this approach, or you can go, I know typically how these things go. They're going to put someone. Give someone a pasting. I do enjoy that. I put it on TikTok, stuff like that, and the amount of people were going, "Don't worry, Derby are coming along soon." Is the only thing that makes me hesitate it. But
I'd say the same, Tom.
It's just that it's Derby and that it could happen. But then equally, you've got to put the fact in that a team haven't scored in 11 games. I think they've conceded about 19, 20 goals. I like the appointment they made in Darrell Clark. I think it's good for what they came out with. My only hesitancy would be it's Derby County. And this is what they do. Yeah,
for me, then balance of probabilities, then Derby highly likely to win that game. It's why they're 1-2 to win the match. Too short for me.
Too short.
It's just too much of a risk. Again, something that I've mentioned before in previous episodes. I just really don't like the unknown of a new manager at a club, especially like first home game for a new manager who's known for being like fairly abrasive, trying to get the supporters on side. this just smacks of potential coupon buster for me at 1-2. If this was Derby, somewhere closer to even like 4-6, but even money, but 1-2, what we're gonna get in terms of added juice to the overall price is fairly minimal considering the risk. And Derby, they've been pretty good this year, but they're not running away with the league. I think that you would be struggling to get anybody going off shorter. I think this is as short as you would see anybody. And I won't put Derby up there with Oxford United.
But you've said yourself, Jay, that you think it's highly likely that Derby win this game. The odds of 1-2, I think, if I'm right in saying, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 67% chance of winning is the implied probability. I think that's about right, to be honest. After Cheltenham's 2-0 loss to Fleetwood, the home fans were singing to the players, "You're not fit to wear the shirt." This is a team that's desperately low on confidence. I just don't see how Cheltenham compete with Derby, to be honest. I'd be happy to take the 1-2 personally. I appreciate it is a short price, but I think that's a reflection of where Cheltenham are at the moment and the quality that Derby have with a lot of championship players in their squad.
Potential understatement of the century as well, that isn't it? You're not fit to wear the shirt for a team that
haven't scored. yeah.
It's a bit. They were being potentially a little bit kind there.
Not fit to score a goal.
I like if I put the potential of thinking it's Derby and this might well be what they do. They should really win the game comfortably. They've beaten pretty poor teams already away from home, haven't they? They've got a decent away record. They should be in and around the top 6 minimum so far as the expectation. Should we do the cliche, put a pin in it?
Yeah, let's put a pin in it. Let's revisit this.
I think we can. This definitely feels to me we can come back at the end if we've got something that's like
I'll fight Joe
1.
over it at the end, I reckon.
I just want to come back and see the battle.
Yeah.
Are we completely against a 1-2 price at all?
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
Say it's a home team against a poor team. Would we be more inclined to put it in? Do we think? Or
no, I wouldn't say so. But like for context, then they're a shorter price. I know that Cheltenham haven't scored this season.
They've only got 1 point all season as well, Joe.
Yeah, so
which is a good achievement. When
they're shorter, Derby, to win at Cheltenham than Arsenal were to win at Bournemouth last weekend. Like fair bit shorter. So usually when you go down the leagues in the EFL, the better teams actually go off at a longer price against the poorer teams in the division, which is where we can get the value in boosting up the overall price of our Acca. You don't really get the huge disparity in how they rate the best teams against the worst teams. But here, I think that there's the fact that Derby is such a big club that they've probably been priced particularly short. So that's what I just don't see as a value selection.
We're very short price league favourites. So we're seeing a big knock on. I mean, I don't want to say a team that maybe might come up in the podcast, but like Crawley, for example, keep going off at long prices despite the fact that they've had such a good start to the season because they were clear favourites. I've backed them to finish bottom and be relegated. That bet's already dead in October, but it shows the kind of knock-on effect from the pre-season price and stuff like that. Derby, I'm happy to revisit.
Yeah, let's revisit Derby.
I think if you want a bit of a Acca type price at 10-11, the one I'll chuck in first is League Two, and it's bizarre because I fancied them to win in midweek, but now I'm going to oppose them for pretty much the theory that I was going on. Would we take Colchester at 10-11 to beat Morecambe? Do you think, with Colchester being the home side here?
So Colchester have definitely picked up. So they lost 4 of their first 5. Since then, broadly speaking, they did have some defensive issues last time out. They've got a couple of key players like Connor Hall and Noah Chilvers in defence and midfield, respectively, who have been really good players previously, but aren't quite at the same level as maybe they have been in the past. But they've still got a lot of talent in their side. Morecambe... 10-11 is the price, is it?
Yes, for Colchester.
I don't know if I'd back Colchester at odds on. I still think there's enough question marks over it where I would say odds on. I think if it was odds against, I would be more willing to get on side with you. But I think what you've got in Morecambe is a side with a manager in Derek Adams who seems to love the underdog specialist. They've got some talent in their attack in Michael Mellon and Adam Mayer and players like that. So I'm just a little bit reticent to go against Morecambe at an odds-on price.
Yeah, I think my selection was obviously seeing Colchester at a couple of good results this season, but Morecambe, said this on last pod, the large majority of the points are going to come in home games. I think they beat Forest Green, didn't they, on the road, but a struggling Forest Green side to start with, and Derek Adams is having a little smile at the Mark Hughes news, I think, for Bradford last night. Just a little smile on that one. I'm fine to listen to other suggestions, and if there is a bit of hesitancy at that price, if we need to nail down a first one, we've gone on for a while on a first selection here. We need to nail one down.
No, well, we've been on a real run of racing through the first selection, haven't we? So we did have to.
It's very odd that we get the first 3 dismissed, one for an error in kickoff time, but I want this fourth one, I need it to deliver. If someone has a confident one they can throw out now,
I'll go. So, Leicester to beat Stoke at 4-6.
Fine.
Yeah, totally in on that one.
Yeah, I think that...
could just end the section there, go fine.
Yeah, we don't have to overreact to the fact that Stoke managed to summon one performance to win at Bristol City and bust the coupon for us last weekend. One that I did mention on the midweek podcast that didn't save me because I didn't manage to get an overall win in Acca, but I did freeze that at half time with the Acca freeze when it was 2-1. So it was a big price as well. I think we put Bristol City in at 13-10 to win, so there was always the possibility that it wasn't going to be an absolute banker. But Stoke just haven't shown enough for me this season, and Leicester, I see no sign of them stopping.
No.
3-0 last night against a Preston team who seemingly the bubbles burst, conceded 7, scored none in the last 2. So I don't see who wins the league if not Leicester. I just can't see it, to be honest. The depth that they've got to their squad.
They're already odds on to win the title, by the way. 5th of October, they're already odds on.
I wouldn't argue with that. And the other thing is, I think Stoke have started a lot of their games quite slowly this season, and Alex Neil has made a lot of first half substitutions, which in one way you kind of admire that he's willing to hold his hands up when he's got it wrong and change things quickly. But I don't think they can afford a slow start against Leicester because of the strength and depth that they've got. So if you go into the second half against Leicester on the back foot, they've got players on the bench who can really change a game at this level. Jamie Vardy's almost a plan B at times. So it just shows you the embarrassment of riches that Leicester have got. I don't think much more needs to be said on this. I think 4-6 is fantastic price. More to get behind that.
No disagreements from me. It's a frustration of being a fan of another promotion contender that you look at half time, you're winning, Leicester 0-0, you go, here we go, they're going to drop some points. Right, they've won 3-0 when the full time scores come up.
Stick it in there, Tom.
Yeah, I'm happy.
That point on the 3-0, Tom, the thing that I'd noted down about Leicester, and your point's really, really good about fellow promotion contenders. The one thing about Leicester early in the season was that they didn't look like they were taking their chances particularly well, but this is their last few results. So 1-4-1 at Southampton, 1-2-0 at Norwich, 1-0 at home to Bristol City, then 4-1 at Blackburn, 3-0 at home to Preston. So having looked like maybe they were going to be a bit tippy-tappy, taking time to get going, now they're also scoring a bucket load of goals. It is really, really hard to see how they don't waltz to promotion.
Leicester, I think this is the first selection in the Acca. I'm bringing it back. I wasn't here last week and I didn't do it midweek. I love to ask a little quiz question and test people's knowledge.
Go on then.
And Gab's saying this would be a good quiz question about Cheltenham, and me think, here we go. Before we move on, Leicester's the first selection. Did you see yesterday the talk of the 2030 World Cup? It was absolutely everywhere because it's going to be tournament's going to be held in 6 countries in 3 continents. There's going to be...
It used to be Italia 90. Now it's like...
Now it's
South
everywhere.
America's Iberian Peninsula.
Now it
Morocco
is
30 World Cup.
Everywhere. So basically, this talk of the 2030 World Cup got me thinking, I wonder what happened in the 1930 World Cup. It's the 100th anniversary. This is why they're doing it. I don't know how much you remember about football in the 1930s.
Uruguay won the World Cup in 1930.
Maybe that's the question. No, it's not. But 3 teams. It was a 16-team tournament, right? 3 teams ended up withdrawing from the tournament. Japan, Siam.
I thought that was going to be the quiz question.
Japan, Siam, which is now Thailand. Basically saw the journey would take too long and they went, nah, this is obviously before air travel. Look, we're going to pull out.
Right.
Another nation missed their boat. Were meant to take part. They just forgot. Just didn't turn up. Didn't turn up. They missed their boat, and I want to know who that nation was. If you think you know, I'll wait to the end. So I don't want answers before the end.
Ooh.
Do you want? I'll give you first clue now.
It was held in Uruguay, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's held in Uruguay. Okay.
Right. I'll give you clue 1, and then we'll move on.
So it would have to be somewhere that is across the sea from South America, wouldn't it?
Don't know. I'm not.
You're not getting a boat from Brazil to Uruguay, are you?
You might go round. Your first clue, missed opportunity for them because they have never placed in the top 4 of a World Cup, let alone won the thing.
Oh.
So that's it. No answers until the end. No answers until the end. Back to the Acca, though. Back to the Acca. The first selection for this week's Acca, we are taking Leicester to beat Stoke at a price of 4-6. On to the second selection then, joining Leicester. Gab, we'll open up with you, actually. I want to hear a potential of a second selection that could go in this Acca.
I'm getting behind Accrington Stanley because...
Yeah, I had a look at these.
Yeah, they've got a really good home form so far this season, although they did lose to Stockport last time out. But the main reason I'm favouring Stanley and John Coleman's side is because I've got a massive downer on Forest Green Rovers, unfortunately, because what the situation for them is they've appointed this coach in David Horseman, who, when he first came in at Forest Green, I've never seen a manager be more clear and precise about what they wanted. He wanted high pressing, attack every ball in the middle third, quick transition, sprint mentality. That was it. And what we've seen is the complete opposite. And the problem that I think they've got is Horseman's come in from Southampton, where that's the style of play. But they've recruited Troy Deeney, who's a 35-year-old centre-forward. They've got he played up top with Matty Taylor at Stockport in midweek. Matty Taylor's a veteran as well. So can you play David Horseman's style of football with the personnel they've got? I don't think you can. And I think there's probably a question to be had about whether Horseman's been able to adapt, whether the players have been able to adapt to him. I think they're in crisis at the moment, and while I'm not necessarily huge on Accrington Stanley this season, I do have some trust in John Coleman, given what he's done over the last 20-odd years. I think they're going to take advantage of the problems at Forest Green. More than happy to back the Reds.
Yeah, when I spoke about Morecambe Accrington in the week, it was basically the home team, and if the fixture was the other way around, I'd back Accrington to win that game, I think. Immediately, no issues from me at 23-20. This was a game that I had on a bit of a long list when I was looking through yesterday, the potentials. Any thoughts on this one or anything to add, Joe? Because I like this price. I'd expect
get odds against. I'm really happy to get odds against on that.
I'd expect it to be, Colchester, we spoke about a 10-11 against Morecambe. I thought it'd be roughly priced up the same as that game, to be honest. So it is a bit of a bonus that we have got 23-20, and it does boost, obviously, the value in the Acca.
Yeah, I think it'll shorten by the off. I'm on side with it. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before. We were talking about Accrington, and I'm similar to Gab. Then I have concerns for them this season, but the last couple of home games against poor teams, then they've taken care of them fairly easily. Then they wiped the floor with Sutton 4-1. And
Newport
then
on the opening day.
Yeah, and beat Carlisle. I know it was in whatever we call it now, Papa John's Trophy, but another poor team that they beat at home. So it's been against the better teams that they've struggled against. I'd be happy to get them on side. I don't see them being anywhere near that kind of the top 10 this season. It's probably going to be a mid-table, lower mid-table, and hopefully they'll be okay. Because I am similar to Gab, big fan of John Coleman, nostalgia and very straightforward post-match interview reasons, probably. But get him in the Acca.
I have absolutely no disagreement here. I can't believe after going through the first section and selection, trying to work it out, and forensically go, no, this one, no. That one's done. I have absolutely no issue in adding Accrington. Are we happy with this?
Absolutely.
Fair enough. I usually do my clues at the end of each section, for my quiz question, but now it feels like it's very soon after.
Come on, give me a clue.
Okay, I'll give you a second
one. Continent.
So, maybe this will give you maybe a little bit one. So the question, of course, was back in 1930, one team missed their boat to go to the World Cup. Who was that nation? They've never placed in the top 4 of a World Cup, let alone won the thing. But they are 7-time winners of their main continental competition, though.
It's got to be in Africa. It's got to be an African nation.
I'm giving you nothing. I'm giving you nothing, and we will move on very quickly because I reckon that it will click eventually. But I clue 4, you'll get it.
He's worse than Jake.
You will get it.
Can't control himself.
I think I've got an answer, but I'll give you at the end.
Yeah, I'll ask at the end.
Okay, great.
So there we go. So back to the Acca then. This week's Acca, we have Leicester to beat Stoke, and we have Accrington to beat Forest Green. We're looking at a price at the moment on the double of just above 5-2.
One thing we've all got in common is having that one leg of an Acca let us down. From spending your winnings in your head to cursing that last-minute equaliser that broke your heart. But it doesn't have to be that way. Acca Freeze from Sky Bet gives you the power to freeze a winning score early. Even if that team goes on to lose, Sky Bet will settle it as a winner. It's time to take action. It's time to Acca Freeze and end the game your way. Visit skybet.com for full terms and conditions.
So we've raced through Section 2, having debated at length on Section 1 about the first two selections. We've got Leicester, we've got Accrington. I'll chuck this one in. Maybe I'm hoping we'll go through as quickly as we did on this one. Cardiff are 29-20, near 6-4 to beat Watford.
I should have put a note down saying Tom will bring this one. I could have written down a script for what he's going to say next as well. I could do it in your voice if you want.
Try it. Try me. See if it's what I had.
Errol Bullock builds his team on having a strong home record, and that's what he's doing at Cardiff. And Watford, they're on a poor run. They had an okay start to the season under Valerian Ismail, but it's just not looking great. But you can see what I saw Cardiff, the way that they even started against Leeds. Then they've developed them really quickly. And they're just a team to get on side at home. And that looks a really big price against a struggling team. I'm Tom Carnduff.
That is basically roughly it. I've spoke about Errol Bullock's brilliant kind of home record at his previous clubs in Turkey. Again, though, it is that having seen Cardiff on opening day and then seeing them in other games, there's a lovely variety about this team. That when we're playing your Leicesters, your Leeds, I've done the cliché, your such and such, but when we know we're going away to say...
Just say good teams.
Yeah, when we go into the top teams, the top end sides, that we can sit back, we can frustrate, we can play an effective counter-attacking style. When we're at home against teams that we know aren't quite as good, we can take a bit of the initiative and be on that front foot and look to attack them as well. There's a lovely variety about this Cardiff side. And I'm ashamed to say at the start of the season, I looked and went, I don't know about the coach, this side. They could be dragged into that relegation battle. Start of October, I have absolutely no concerns about them now. They look a really nice varied side. I don't think they can keep up this top six charge. It is probably just a bit above them at this point. But, roughly around the 6-4 mark to beat a Watford side who are quite poor, but do deserve credit for their brilliant announcement in midweek, the old club statement, and we all went, here we go again, Watford have done it, and they've gone, no, actually, we've given this one a new contract, which maybe suggests that Watford, there is some long-term vision for once at that club. But for me, Cardiff, a team who are, again, strong home record of the manager. He's carried it into this season. I think they're on 4 home wins on the bounce, maybe at the moment. He deserves a lot of credit, Bullet, and I really like this as a price in the game. And again, a potential value bumper that means we could look at a short price team final.
On the other hand, though, Tom, how confident are we that, although there's a gap between Cardiff and Watford in the table at the moment, that there will still be that gap? I think Watford are sort of around the 18th mark. I'm not 100%, I think it's around 18th. And Cardiff are sort of just outside the playoff spots. But I expect the gap to narrow a little bit.
Yeah.
I think Watford will get better. I think Cardiff will regress into mid-table. So I'd be worried a little bit about the odds being dictated by how the table looks right now, when I actually see those two teams at a similar level.
Yeah, I think there will be naturally at some point, but I think it could... It's one of these fixtures that in its simplistic terms in the Championship or kind of any division like that, when you're looking at two teams we probably think will be 10th and 14th or 12th and 15th or something like that.
Sure.
X team will beat Y team at home, Y team will beat X team at home. They'll win the home fixtures in that one, kind of the way it's going. I just think early on, while the momentum's high at Cardiff, and it will be a little drop-off at some point, you've got to be wary of that while they're playing other teams that, again, kind of haven't started as particularly as well as perhaps they expected, although they had that really good opening day win, didn't they, against QPR, Watford, that it's probably a good time to take advantage of it because, again, I maybe thought this would be around the 11-10, 6-5 marker, let alone 6-4. It seems just a little bit on that bigger side, and again, if you include this... I mean, we spoke about Derby as a 1-2 shot, but you're allowing yourself massive freedom to go for what would be considered an Acca banker, to go alongside a selection I'm quite confident in.
I would echo similar to Gab, that I think you bang on in terms of it looks like one to... I'd be keen to get this on side as a single, but having this in an Acca tied in with some other ones, I'd be nervous about this. Because I don't think there is that quality gap between the two teams. And it'd be the one that'd be like, I don't know.
Speaking to the Watford fans as well, there doesn't seem to, although they did lose in midweek quite badly, it does seem like there's not an awful lot of panic in the Watford camp, and they've got the likes of Matthews Martins in really good form this season on the left-hand side. Wesley Hoot has largely been really impressive at centre-back, and I don't think yet the likes of Ryan Porteou, Yezer Asprilla, Imran Louza, who are sort of expected to be really big players for Watford this season, I don't think they've yet hit the gear that they're capable of, and I think they've probably got another level in their locker. So I'm just not really prepared to. I'm with Joe in the sense I'm not really willing to go against Watford as part of an Acca. I can see why you'd go for that 6-4 as a standalone bet, but I'm going to veto this one.
Just gives me the heebie-jeebies, Tom, this one.
It's a nice phrase, isn't it? And there was a lot of happiness amongst the Watford fans, I think, on that announcement in midweek when I was looking around Twitter as well. So there's obviously that little bit, I suppose, you've got to be wary of the cliched feel-good factor that's kind of come from that.
I think Ishmael...
Two from me, two failures. I need something else.
I think Ishmael likes this game as well. To turn round a bit of a losing run. That Cardiff have started well. They're probably not expected to get anything. There won't be a massive away following, low pressure. Go there, make it niggly. Try and score a few goals. Could see them getting something from it.
I agree, yeah.
I'm happy to sit this one out. I'll back it myself. Maybe freeze it, get a 2-up, something like that on that one. Hit me with something else then that we could use. I want one that's a little bit of a juicy one if we want to go for a potentially
Whose turn is it?
short price. Gab, go on.
I'm going to go... I know you want a juicy one, but I might have to make you wait for that, Tom, because I really want to get Bolton on side.
I've got Bolton in my notes as well,
yeah.
So I have no issues with this.
Yeah, I think they've, especially in the first 3 games of the season, they look so dominant. And although they did have a bit of a drop-off after that, I'm pretty confident that they're going to get back to that form, especially after that back-to-back victories over Port Vale and Stevenage. Carlisle, I think they just struggle to have the quality to compete with the real top sides in this league. They've been reasonably solid defensively. They'll probably be hoping Owen Moxon can step up in this game because he's a really energetic midfielder who's got a good long-range ball in him. So that kind of be their hope that they can maybe get something on the counter-attack. But I expect Bolton to dominate, and I'm happy to get behind them.
Yeah, I think we haven't spoken about Bolton on this podcast in a while. It feels like we were really hot on them start of the season. I think Carlisle, like Cheltenham, teams like that, you're kind of looking at who they're playing, because for me it's been a long thing of their probably struggling inability to create chances and things like that, which stuff you've touched upon there as well. Joe, I think there's 2 votes for Bolton. 1 to 2 I think they are, so it's a short price, but it's what I'd consider an Acca price, a home team against another poor team would expect to win. I'm all for this at the moment.
Yeah, and I'd danger of going over old ground, but just for context really, then the price at Bolton to beat Carlisle at 8-15, if we compare that for a home win, and Bolton, who I would rate as being probably the best, if not one of the best 3 teams in the division, against one of the strugglers in the division, short a price for that derby win away at Cheltenham, which is why I just can't get on side with that one. This feels like there's juice in it, and I think we backed them at the same price opening weekend of the season for the similar reasons. That disparity gap, if this is a top flight game, you're looking at 1 to 3 for one of the best teams against one of the worst teams, at the very best 2 to 7 probably. So I'd be throwing it straight in, and they do seem to come over that little blip, beating Stevenage at home and Port Vale away. That's 2 significant results for them.
4.5 to 1 the treble currently stands at if we include that. Are we happy with that at the moment? Are we confident enough that we've all got final selections, which I'll touch on in a little bit, enough to kind of bump it up if we include Bolton? Because for me as a selection, I compare, look at Leicester at Stoke, I have no issues with
I'm happy to bring up another one up my sleeve that might bump it up a little bit at a later
Excited by
stage.
this.
Do you want to go, Joe?
Happy to go for Bolton?
Yeah, I like Bolton.
Right, well, we'll then lock in Bolton as the 3rd selection in this week's Acca. So far, we've got Leicester, we've got Accrington, and we have Bolton, as we mentioned there, to beat Carlisle at a price just shy of 4.5 to 1. Quiz question time. I want to revisit it. I know that the longer... I want to make it easier, so, by the end of it we get, but I think this is the one that is definitely going to confirm it, knowing Gab and everything he knows. The question, of course, 1930 World Cup, who missed their boat, completely missed out on the tournament, who was the nation, never placed in the top 4 of a World Cup, let alone won the thing. They're 7-time winners of their main continental competition, though. The current squad has, I think, 3 players who play in the top 2 tiers of English football. That's it. We're moving on. You see the cogs going already in this one. I think it could be it. Back to the Acca. Then we have Leicester, we have Accrington, we have Bolton. I need a little bit of a juicy one to bump this up at just shy of 4.5 to 1. We need near enough even money-ish shout, maybe, if my maths is correct, to get us to that 10 to 1 marker that we always kind of talk about early on. Could go higher, could go freedom.
Yeah,
but
I've got one for you. So, I'm in his seat. Jake Osgathorpe, not with us this week. God, on holiday, he's not departed. And it's usually Mansfield that he's making a big argument for, but it's Notts County.
Oh,
I really like. And I'm surprised, actually, because they were really heavily backed early in the season. And Jake was trying to get them in the Acca at crazy prices, like really, really heavily odds on for away games. And they're 11 to 10 for an away win at Barrow, which I'm a big fan of that price. So that's I feel like today we're kind of bringing the selection, then we're getting other people to give the argument, but I'm quite liking the feel of it. So I'm going to leave it there and then test the waters instead of just presenting my argument first.
As a football team, I have no issues, obviously, on the evens. But the problem is, and my mate spots Grimsby, so we went to Notts County Grimsby earlier in the season. Grimsby Notts County won the game 3-2. I missed the second goal. I was buying beers at half time. The ridiculous added time thing screwed me in the first half, so I missed the second one, but everyone was happy because I paid for them. Notts County couldn't defend that day. I was watching them going, my God, these guys can't defend.
Yeah.
It's October the 5th, as I've said for the 3 times on this podcast for some reason. They still can't defend. This is my only problem that's holding me back, as them being... I have no disagreements largely with people who say this is the team that win League Two. Fine, because we kind of get attracted to the attack and the wonderful kind of way that they play in that sense. But you have to be able to defend at some point. There has to be some kind of foundation of a defence to build upon if you're going to win a division. I don't know if, Gab, you disagree, but that's the only thing that holds me back a little bit about Notts County, just not knowing what you're going to get with them.
Yeah, I think one of the slight qualms I have about Notts County, because stylistically and as an attacking force in the possession football, they've been outstanding. And to be honest, if you push me for a League Two winner, I would say them. But I do agree with you about the defensive issues. The issue for me is that they've got 3 natural centre halves in their back 3 and sort of 2 converted wingers as wing backs, which I think means they've got this odd situation where the wide centre backs aren't aggressive enough and the wing backs actually don't have those defensive instincts. So there can be a little bit of a chasm sometimes in those wide areas, which the right teams can exploit. And then where I'd inject a little bit of doubt would be Barrow actually had 24 shots in the last game, lost 2-1 at Grimsby Town, but it was arguably their best performance of the season, even in defeat. And so there is part of me thinking Barrow at home, tight pitch, awkward place to play great football. There is part of me that's kind of wondering whether Barrow might be able to pull off an upset. And if Notts County were an odds-on price, I'd probably oppose the selection. But because it's odds against, I'm willing to go with it, but I'm not. I don't feel wholehearted about it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you touched on that defence there, and that's the big thing when I've seen it. It just looked a bit stodgy, the word, kind of at the back. The kind of balance it had, and maybe that's why the defence quite isn't there.
I think they need to tweak it a little bit, just to fine tune.
It just felt like it kind of. You ever seen that meme of the drawing of the zebra? You know, where like it's absolutely superb at the back half and then you get to the front of it and it's just like someone's given up and just quickly drawn it. Notts County kind of the other way around. You know, it's an absolute finished, brilliant product at the front and the back someone's gone, oh, right, I've run out of time. There you go. There's the rest of it. That's what it kind of feels like a little bit there.
I know where you're coming from, yeah.
Again, I think I want to hear Gab's up his sleeve selection here. Or if there's any others, of course, that... Again, the price does draw me to Notts County a little bit, but there is doubt. Is there potentially some teams we could look at that we go, actually, I feel far more confident in them?
Sure. So if we want a bigger price that's odds against, I would look at Blackpool at Charlton.
Oh, I was thinking maybe Charlton at Blackpool. Charlton v Blackpool, but go on.
Ooh, interesting. Well, we'll have to have a little fisticuffs over that one.
I'm not going to win in any EFL battle with Gab,
He's also bigger than you.
Yeah. So I basically screwed whichever way this goes.
Have you ever had a fight?
Anyway, me?
Yeah.
That's why I got no teeth.
Yeah. You have?
Yeah.
Oh, hockey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not in the street. I'm not like a
'cause you were
wild...
introducing yourself as some sort of...
I'm not like...
Well, you're short, so you've got a lower centre of gravity, so that might give you...
Short to you, but you're very tall.
Yeah, that's true.
Problem. It's like a perceived thing. Yeah, I'm not out in the street. I played sport. It happens.
We'll have to work out what the odds would be for that one.
Don't
Maybe
fight,
19 to
though.
10. Don't do that.
Don't fight
Don't
people.
do that. Love
please.
each other.
No, yes.
Anyway, we're at Blackpool.
Love wins.
Blackpool. On the topic of fighting, back to Blackpool.
So, Blackpool, 2 wins in the last 3. They did lose last time out to Derby. But what I've noticed is that the 2 games that Kylian Kouassi has started since he signed from Sutton, they've actually won and produced probably 2 of their best performances of the season. And I think Kouassi and Jordan Rhodes as a pairing, I think is really exciting because Kouassi's a real raw energy, gets in behind, pest for defenders. And then you've got Jordan Rhodes, who's like a very seasoned goal scorer with excellent movement and finishing ability. He's already got 5 goals already this season. And I do think that those 2, combined with the fact that since Neil Critchley's had a bit of a tactical rethink where play a bit more round pegs in round holes the last few games, I feel like Blackpool have the potential to climb the table, even though they're currently in the bottom half. So whereas Charlton, for me, I think squad-wise, they've had some injuries early in the season. They're still a little bit imbalanced. So I like the look of Blackpool. I could see them getting a win there.
I can't have Blackpool in. So I was at the Barnsley-Blackpool game last week, and they benefited hugely from a completely baffling team selection from the Barnsley manager, Neil Collins. So the game was just very, very dysfunctional Barnsley team. And then you cannot legislate for just a terrible decision by the Barnsley wing-back Corey O'Keefe to give away a penalty. Jordan Rhodes scored it. That's Blackpool's only away goal in League One this season, that penalty from Jordan Rhodes. And then they didn't really do anything the rest of the game. Barnsley still should have scored 2 goals. Some brilliant last-ditch defending. They were just throwing the bodies in the way of everything, and Barnsley was still really poor. In defence of Neil Collins, realised how poor his team selection was, picked the right team for the trip to Cambridge in midweek, and they won 4-0. There's no way I can get Blackpool on side having watched that.
I'm prepared to fall on my sword on this occasion and maybe go to Notts County instead of Blackpool then.
Yeah, mine was Michael Appleton, to be honest, at Charlton. I quite like him. I don't know if that's a widely seen view. I understand that, but that
I think
to me, I think he's a
really
brilliant
good
tactician. Like in terms of that, I don't think I'd have him as a bit of a. I don't know because obviously I don't know him, so I can't say what he's like a personality. But in terms of his, it's a lot of kind of X's and O's type thing, if you get what I mean.
I think that's he's a very good developer of players. I think the issue that you've got for him at Charlton is that they're a club that's been through the mill with ownership issues over the last 10 years. And I think what they probably need is someone who can galvanise the place. I don't necessarily see that as Michael Appleton's skill set. That's not an insult to him. I think he's very good at what he does and his skill set. But he's not someone who will necessarily go out of his way to applaud the fans or sort of really galvanise people. I just don't think that's kind of his style. So I kind of question the fit a little bit there. So I'm prepared to fall on my sword in terms of the Blackpool vote, but I'm not prepared to for us to go against.
Should we shake hands on the draw? Should we include a draw?
Yeah, let's
shake hands on the draw.
Genuinely, I feel like the draw's mega in play here. So last...
I'll never include it in Acca, but if you want, I never bet on draws because I don't like them, but if you want it... Maybe this is
last Saturday for that Blackpool game, then he went in the away end. But Matt Brocklebank, who is one of our leading racing tipsters on Sporting Life, was going to the game, and I said to him beforehand that I thought it was going to be 0-0 because I thought that Critchley would set up just to frustrate Barnsley, and he did, and it all played out very well because of the reasons that I've explained. Barnsley didn't have a shot on target, and I would anticipate him to do similar for this game. And I would be just avoiding it for an Acca. But I'd be interested to see. I know it's not something that people particularly like to back, but I'd be really interested to see what the draw price is for a game like this because he's such a wily tactician. They slowed the game down so much. I think Blackpool had 7 players booked last Saturday for majority for time wasting and niggly fouls. So they just feel like a team that's going to try and do that away. I know they played good football in the end under Critchley 3 years ago when they got promoted. But it's just a bit of a funny game. Not one to have an Acca for me.
Bit of the slate kind of looks like that. You look at some team, Peterborough I'd never back. It's a long-standing issue I've got with betting on them, probably from the God knows what spell it was of Darren Ferguson, but they're 4-6 against Lincoln, who obviously have their issues up front. It's a really tricky slate to call. Exeter Barnsley's an interesting game again. That's there. Shrewsbury Northampton too.
Tom, remind me what we're currently at.
So we are currently at just shy of 4.5 to 1 on Leicester, Accrington, and Bolton. If we add Notts County.
I've got two more.
Oh, go on then, Joe.
So just to give you this, if we add Notts County, we're at 9.75 to 1. We're basically 10 to 1. So we always have that to go back on, and the fact that I will overlook kind of everything we've just said, despite the fact we had the doubts, because I can back them to score 5 goals in a game, even if they concede 4.
That's true.
So,
but what about if we add Derby?
Derby's a very short price. This is the problem. We have 6.76 to 1, and then we're having to probably.
So we would need to add another one if we added Derby instead of Notts County.
Give us your two.
I'll give you the other two because I actually prefer these two for an Acca, but I put Notts County in because I knew we need to get the price up a little bit. So I really like Ipswich to beat Preston at home. I actually anticipated that one of you two would bring it forward. We talk all day about Ipswich, so well coached. They've won a lot. What? I know I'm just going to not try to pull the stat out, so like 99 out of the last 100 games or whatever.
Why don't we just get like the producers just to edit in all the old podcast bits we spoke about Ipswich, because it's always the same.
Totally.
Really. They're really good. They win lots.
But it is something like 22 out of 24 games, isn't it? Which is just baffling. And Preston's bubble does seem to have burst, lost 4-0 and 3-0 the last two games.
It unfortunately looked like it was going to at some point, doesn't it? And it seems like it has now.
This is 4-6. Ipswich to beat Preston, so that's the first one that I had, and then the other one, which is in the Premier League.
Ooh.
I previewed Chelsea's trip to Fulham, Monday Night Football for SportingLife.com, and there's a brilliant piece on site written by Alex Kebble, our tactics expert, about how Chelsea have actually been playing really well this season, not just on the underlying metrics where they're fourth on expected points, which is just showing us that their performances are far better than the results have backed up, and it's just the fact they hadn't been taking chances, so it was coming. So I backed them to score twice at Fulham, which they did really early, and backed them to score 3 times, which they somehow didn't. Hit the post through Ian Maatson, had tons of chances, but they were brilliant on Monday. They were really, really good and really looked like a team that ought to be fourth in the table. They're going off at just slightly longer than Manchester United did to win at Burnley. They played rubbish, Man United, and still won 1-0, which is why I really like Chelsea 4-6 to win at Burnley. I'd have no concerns about them winning that game. Burnley managed to win at Luton in midweek, first win of the season. Got a draw at Nottingham Forest, lost every other game so far. So they're the two that I had, both of which I like, and obviously Chelsea I did a lot of digging into for that game on Monday, so feel like I had the intel on it.
Yeah, pricing wise, again, it feels like if we chuck those two together and Derby, we have to pick 2 of the 3. If we take Notts County, we're done, and then we don't have to worry.
I'd probably rather take Notts County than have to back 2 other teams, because then you're relying on one more not slipping.
Yeah, and I guess Burnley are against, are struggling a bit, but they're a team I know a lot of people from what we saw in the Championship last year thought they were going to kick on a little bit. It's not happened. However, they got the first win in midweek, didn't they? So I don't know if it'll galvanise them or stuff like that. I'm happy to go with Notts County. I think the defensive issues for me are going to be more of an issue long term, whereas individual game by game, they can outscore anyone when it comes to it, and it could be chaotic. And again, that's more of a concern if I had them to win the league rather than just to win an individual game. Sure. So on a pricing perspective, I think as we look to wrap up on the treble, it's just shy of that 4.5 to 1. Like I say, if we go for Notts County, it's just shy of 10 to 1, 9.75 to 1, and that's the price we kind of always want to aim to get to.
I'm happy to go with that personally.
Joe, any doubts? You were the one that brought it to the table, but do you want to add anything? Or
no,
to me, it feels nicer to have that fourfold. Even, we've spoke so much selections there, and it could be a case if you go, actually, I want Derby and Ipswich. Obviously, freeze one if, for example, Accrington go ahead. Biggest price one, you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, for our fourfold, Notts County.
Yeah, it feels like a strange way to reach a resolution. That because
diplomacy in action.
the fourfold absolutely, because I brought Notts County and I really like it. From my own personal perspective, then I do actually prefer Ipswich and Chelsea instead. But we are a democracy at the end of the day. So I just do.
What a weird turn of events this has been.
I just wonder whether we're missing a trick not having Ipswich in at 4-6 to beat Preston. That would be my. But you can't back everything, folks. You really can't. You do have to gamble responsibly.
It's a weird turn of events that you brought Notts County to the table. Two of us have voiced concerns, and actually we've come around to going, no, actually they're probably the value play out of the rest of them, and you're going, don't know now.
Yeah.
I feel to me, I just have more confidence in a fourfold than a fivefold.
Go on, wrap it up then. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, Notts County.
Fourfold,
Let's get on with it.
Notts County.
Yeah, let's go for Notts County.
Let's get on with our lives, mate.
Let's get on. There's just stuff to do, isn't there? There's stuff to do. Before we do, though, I want my quiz question answered, and this is it. I will recap. The question was that back in 1930 World Cup, 3 teams ended up withdrawing from the 16 team tournament. Japan and Siam, which is now Thailand, saw the journey take too long. Another one missed the boat. Who was the nation? The clues you've had were missed opportunity. They've never placed in the top 4 of a World Cup since. They're a 7-time winner of their main continental competition, though. The current squad has 3 players who play in the top 2 divisions of English football. If you haven't got it from that,
Egypt.
The final clue. The current star player is a 3-time winner of the Premier League's Golden Boot Award, although he had to share it twice. You've just shouted out Joe Townsend. The answer, of course, to this one is...
Gab's not even on the screen anymore because he's in such despair.
It's just,
I think Joe might be right that it's
Hit me with your answer.
Go on, Joe.
It is Egypt. They were booked to be on the mail ship Florida, but a storm in the Mediterranean delayed them by a day. They arrived to find the ship had sailed without them. Everyone else travelled on one boat together for this World Cup.
Can I have half of Joe's point for
Yes.
that one?
You know what?
I did say Africa.
No half
Yes.
points. We did this. Remember this football quiz that we did last week where we finished third? It was no half point, and it cost us ultimately.
I've done
This
half
is-
of your work.
This is
Joe.
this is
an
not
outrage.
this is not your football quiz from last week. This is my quiz, and Gab gets half a point. You can have 1 point. Gab gets half a point, and I will note it down mentally in a spreadsheet somewhere as well, so we don't get it.
Joke quiz.
So when I was looking at this World Cup, before we wrap up, this is the most mad thing I've ever met, this 1930 World Cup. 6 weeks of heavy rain in Uruguay meant one stadium wasn't ready until about a week in. The US coach or trainer Jack Cole went to confront a referee in a game. Obviously, they're all in suits. He had a bottle of chloroform, presumably for treating injuries, tripped over, smashed it, knocked himself out of his own fumes. Argentina threatened to pull out after a hostile reception from Uruguay fans. And Romania, whose team was selected by the king, their player Alfred Eisenbeiser Ferraru fell ill. He was taken off the ship. They announced his death on the return as his condition was really, really bad. Turns out he recovered fine in hospital. The day of his wake, turned up at his house, said, no, I'm fine. And then he went on to represent Romania in figure skating at the 1936 Winter Olympics. So on the topic of 2030 World Cup, there's your 1930 World Cup roundup. And more importantly, back to this weekend. Forget 2030. Let's go with the 7th of October. 2023, this week's Acca, we are taking Leicester to beat Stoke. We are taking Bolton to beat Carlisle. We're having Accrington to beat Forest Green. And we've got Notts County as the only away team to beat Barrow at a price of just shy of 10-1 pre-boost. So that is our 4 selections. Remember, keep it fun, never bet more than you can afford, and please gamble responsibly. Make sure you get in touch with us on social media. Search Sporting Life Football. You'll be able to find us that way. Let us know what you think of that Acca. Should we have included any of the teams, the likes of Derby, Chelsea and Ipswich? Should we have avoided someone in there as well? And head over to sportinglife.com/football to find the link to back that at an enhanced price. And if you haven't already, please follow and rate us on iTunes, Spotify, or your chosen podcast provider. We'll be back on Thursday.